AI Mentors is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting and networking needs. Our podcast, AI Mentors, hosted by Mark Kelly, brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI Mentors cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career.
Welcome to the AI Mentors. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. Our guest today is Charlie Berg. Charlie is the VP of Engineering at Avant-Garde Health. Charlie has been actively engaged in building and leading teams that have brought innovative products to markets. He's also the founding member of the Boston CTO Club. Charlie, very welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about your background, and maybe tell us also a little bit what Avant-Garde does and some of the problems you look to try to solve.
Well, I have been doing this for over 40 years. I started before there were personal computers, when we were still working on mainframes. My background was originally in artificial intelligence, and I spent close to a third to a half of my career building expert systems, which are heuristic-based learning tools. And when machine learning came in and became more popular, I switched to that. A lot of my career has been in commercial applications of that, in design problems, in robotics, and most recently I've been applying it in healthcare.
And tell us a little bit what Avant-Garde does and how you trying to kind of solve problems, and particularly kind of how you're kind of leveraging data analytics.
AvantGarde Health is a healthcare analytics company, and what we do is we provide hospitals and doctors insights into costs and outcomes in their care in their hospitals. We combine data from the hospital itself, from their ERP systems, as well as from CMS, which is the federal government arm that oversees the Medicare and Medicaid systems here in the United States. And by combining all that data, we can help them understand how they can continually improve. So, for instance, there was a hospital in Pennsylvania and improve their outcomes in knee and hip replacement surgery. And they ended up saving about $6,000 per case and reduced length of stay, which is actually an important measure of outcomes.
So that's a really good example of actually two clear benefits: length of stay in the hospital, and then you also have the case of the cost. And so many companies struggle to actually get proper outcomes. How important is it defining the problem that you're trying to solve and weighing through all that amount of data? Because there's just so much data to go through.
I think it's important that you figure out a real problem to work in. In the commercial space, they expect an ROI on investment, and you can really get lost if you get dumped a bunch of data on your desk and the boss says, use machine learning to solve this problem. So it's kind of a very general idea. It's much better to find a small problem to start with, solve that problem, and then build on from that. That way you justify the expense of doing the big data, as well as provide some contribution that's of value to the company. So in the commercial world, results are in some sense as important or more important than in academia, and it's best to start small and grow from there.
Charlie, how important is it to define the problem that you're actually looking to try to solve, and also be careful not to be too influenced by senior business leaders that don't necessarily have experience with machine learning and just expect the magic wand to be able to make the data dance and generate inferences from it?
Well, you raise a point that is not only germane to machine learning, but it's germane to many engineering products where you've got senior leadership that doesn't understand technology. And in all cases, you always need to communicate under-promising and over-delivering. So in the case of machine learning, you want to do some education and make sure it's understood that this is an incremental and slower process than solving the problems or world peace all within a month. And when you put together a project, you want to make sure that you build a reasonable project plan, much like you would any engineering project, that in which you clearly define what the goals are, what the steps are to achieve the goal, and create some kind of time box so that you know whether or not you're succeeding within some time frame. Because everything, again, in the commercial world is about ROI. And you want to be able to demonstrate success in small projects quickly.
ROI doesn't really always go well with data science projects because of the amount of learning and research. Tell us a little bit about your experience versus engineering projects.
That's true, but in some sense, you always learn something, right? You could have a project that doesn't succeed. You don't find any insights out of a particular methodology you use to classify data, for instance, but you still learn something in some sense. And it would be my suggestion that when you start out a project, it's clearly understood by your superiors that learning can be positive or negative when it's a research project, and that to a large extent, a lot of machine learning is still that can be cast as that still.
When you look at engineering projects and you look at all the kind of the mechanisms for it, you've got nice Scrum, Agile, you've got kind of Kanban, you've got the importance of Jira tickets, and people, there's a lot more processes and procedures through it. How do you think data science projects and people that are running data science teams probably going to learn from that and apply it to what their environment they're working towards?
Well, I think all of the methodologies and tools are applicable. It doesn't really much matter whether you decide to run something lean or run it agile or run an even old-fashioned waterfall, and whether you use one of the methodologies like Scrum or Kanban, as long as you use a methodology. You have to put a methodology in place to run a machine learning project as a project, okay? Much like you would an engineering product. That includes using all the tools that are available to run those projects, whether it's a scheduling program like Microsoft Project or Jira or Slack, etc. I think I'm a big believer in casting even research as an engineering project that has methodologies, goals, tickets, etc.
Here at Alldus, we want to make the hiring process easier for all. Whether you're an employer or an aspiring employee, we have the service for you. For full-time work, Alldus will partner with you to find the best person for the position. Using both our network and our rigorous qualification process, we ensure that only the best talent is shortlisted. We will manage the process and work with you to select our most suitable candidate for your organisation. We also offer excellent temp hiring services. At Alldus, we provide a great opportunity to help you and our candidate make the right choice. The contract period is one long interview for your full-time opening, and the extended experience with our consultant helps you make the best decision. Alldus International is here to quickly help you find the best AI candidate. Our experts stay in close contact with our consultants throughout the duration of the contract, ensuring they have everything they need to get the job done.
You obviously probably have the scars where things have gone well and things have probably not gone so well, and you probably had some learns from that because of the amount of years of experience in the environment. How important is it to take those learns, build on those learns, and really start to upskill the environment that you're in rather than kind of dwell on the failures?
Well, after 40 years, I'm still learning, trust me. No engineer is immune, or data scientist for that matter, is immune to failure. It's part of the job, especially in what is still really quite a young field as computer engineering, computer science. I believe that for every engineer, it's important to take what you learn and apply it to the next gig that you have or the next project that you have. And I mean, that's pretty bread and butter, pretty standard, but it's really has run true for me over the years. And I guess after this number of years of doing this, I think the biggest thing I learned is that no matter what happens, you can continue to try again. A lot of cases in our field, it seems like the end of the world when a project doesn't succeed, but you just kind of move along and keep going. The sun keeps coming up, and there's always work to do.
Yeah, I sometimes experience that when you're not going to plan, and sometimes you can kind of dwell on some of those negatives, but when you put it into perspectives, it's completely different. I recently had the opportunity to speak at the Boston CTO Club, which was a fantastic experience. Would you tell us maybe a little bit about that and how it got started, and maybe if people are interested in finding out more?
The boss, first off, it was fun having you. You actually had a great talk. People were really interested, and I got a lot of positive feedback afterwards. So thank you for coming. The Boston CTO Club is an organization that's actually a spin out of a older and larger club that started in New York City now about 25, 30 years ago. And the club is made up of people who have been in senior management in tech engineering, and meets monthly for breakfast, where we have a speaker usually who may only present off the cuff. They may not have slides. They really shouldn't have handouts, and they can get interrupted at any point with questions and or discussions, as I'm sure that you learned. The New York club had 5 or 6 members who actually were commuting from Boston every week, myself among them. And about 7 or 8 years ago, we decided to start an equivalent club in Boston. Since then, our club has grown to about 50 or 60 members, of which we get maybe 30 people at every meeting. And we, as I said, we meet monthly. We meet on the last Wednesday of the month here in Boston. And if people are interested, they can find me on LinkedIn and contact me. And there, by the way, there are equivalent clubs that once you join ours, we have reciprocal agreements with New York, Seattle, San Francisco, Washington, and Chicago, and someday, hopefully, in Dublin.
From doing it was really enjoyable, and you don't have your crutch, which is the slides, so you get to kind of get a lot of engagement and people challenge, but it's all done from kind of goodwill, and people just want to ask different questions. And it was a little bit intimidating with so many people from MIT and Harvard, and they had the kind of the rings to prove it with the others on them, and it was a pretty cool environment as well. You've been listening to the AI Mentors podcast, and our guest today has been Charlie Berg. Charlie is the VP of Engineering at AvantGarde Health. Charlie, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.